Ukraine has claimed already, reclaimed some of the territory that Russia annexed. The Kremlin even admitting today it doesn't fully know the borders of these new territories. General, how frequently could this land go back and forth and change hands?
Well, it's certainly entirely possible. But if you look at it over the span of centuries, it's happened time and time again. The borders of Central and Eastern Europe have been pretty well ill-defined, historically speaking. But Russia right now is pretty much a one-trick pony. Putin can rattle the nuclear sabers, but his army is in desperate straits. They're having terrible logistics problems. The fact that he's had to call up 300,000 essentially untrained reservists, their reserve component is nothing like ours. We get about 8 weeks of training a year in our reserves and National Guard. The Russian army is lucky if they get a day of training in their reserves. So he's sending cannon fodder to the front. It's not a good situation for him, which is why he's rattling this nuclear saber. And I think it's very interesting that you've seen so many of our retired four-stars, General Petraeus and others, messaging that should Putin use a nuclear device in Ukraine, that NATO could consider that an act of war, and NATO could take out the Russian Black Sea Fleet, could take out much of their invading forces in Ukraine. So just as Putin is rattling his saber, I think we're seeing messaging going back to Putin, and hopefully he's listening.
All right, so Brad, I want to kick it back to you. The general there is saying it's not looking good for Putin. Russia also admits to certain territorial losses. They've retreated from a key strategic city. At this point, how much longer can Putin keep this war going?
Well, he can keep it going for months or maybe even a year easily, because these territorial losses they've had have been bad, and they're certainly going to retrograde and withdraw over time. But they can protract this war for a significant period of time. Putin, he has access to more troops. Yes, they are cannon fodder in a lot of ways, but they're on the defensive, which makes it a little bit easier to manage a troop that's maybe not as well trained as those that you'd take on an offensive mission. So they can really drag this out for a long time. And the Ukrainians are not really equipped necessarily for the kinds of the long-range offensive operations they would need to take back this territory and hold it. So as the general was saying, this could go back and forth for several months. And I think Putin is going to have an opportunity to continue to threaten nuclear weapons during that time.
All right, Brian Clark, retired Major General William Enyart, we thank you both. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.